Here we go. Welcome, everyone. My name is Richard Waring. I'm a staunch member of the Workshop for Publishing Poets and have been doing this for more than a decade. And I have a couple of opening remarks I'd like to give. The first one comes from Colette, who says, "Sit down and put down everything that comes into your head, and then you're a writer. But an author is one who can judge his own stuff without pity and destroy most of it."
Help.
Galway Cannell says, "To me, poetry is somebody standing up, so to speak, and saying with as little concealment as possible what it is for him or her to be on earth at this moment." And lastly, Jericho Brown says, "People don't dislike poetry, but sometimes they dislike the soul work it requires of them." I thought that was very pertinent and perceptive. So tonight we have two wonderful poets, Sara Epstein and Stephen Riel. Sara is a clinical psychologist who integrates writing practices in her psychotherapy work with children and adults. She facilitates and teaches generative writing classes in the Boston area. Her work has appeared in numerous journals, including Nick's Mate Review, Buddhist Poetry Review, Plain Songs, Mockingheart Review, Featured Poet, and Mom Egg Review. Bar of Rest is her first of poems. Please welcome.
Hi, everybody. It's really a joy to be here with you. Thank you for showing up. This is the book just out from Kelsey Books, Bar of Rest.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. A friend of mine did this watercolor.
Beautiful.
I'm so glad to be able to use it. Yeah. So these are some poems from the book that kind of trace an arc in my life. There'll be some most at the beginning about being a child, and then a mother, and then separating and coming out, and then some reverie. So that's kind of the arc. The first poem is Somebody Important. I remember the day I learned I would not grow up to be a man. I was on the third floor in the unearthly realm of my older brother, God. The third floor floated at the top of the house, with God's large room to the right of the stairs and my father's quiet office on the left. My younger brother, John, and I sometimes played in the office, climbing over the tweed couch to open the wing nuts that held a panel in place on the wall. With the panel removed, we could climb into the crawl space under the eaves. We would only play there during the day when my father was at work. Other times, I would climb the stairs to find God. If he was in a benevolent mood, he would toss pennies down the stairs and I would scamper to gather the manna. On this day that I remember, God was showing off his Kenner movie projector, playing scenes from the Flintstones on the back wall. I knew, without ever having asked anyone, that I was going to be a man when I grew up. A man like my father, maybe a doctor, maybe not, but somebody important, a man. I was thinking about this and wondered what my father had been like as a little girl. Now I was confused. Had he ever been a girl? Maybe not. If not, could I really expect to be a man? I better ask God. God set me straight. Never. Only boys grow up to be dads. I knew that. I covered my tracks. Just kidding.
That's great.
The speed of dark. Sam asks me, Mom, you know the speed of light. Well, what is the speed of dark? Meanwhile, Nora's busy in the sandbox. I had sent her outside to get some fresh air before going to Hebrew school. She was mad that she'd have to go without her best friend today. We look out the window to see her writing something in the sand, using the green, tall leaves from the lilies which border the sandbox to form letters. I send Sam out to investigate, which he does at the speed of light. Mom, I think you need to go out there. I go at medium speed. Mom, says Nora when she sees me, see the grave I'm making? I'm digging so I can go in. See what it says? I do. It says, here lies victim of Hebrew school, Nora D. In the sand, she has also written discreetly in lines not outlined in green, but just lines in the sand, Hebrew school sucks. She tells me later she wiped out the sucks part so the neighbors wouldn't think poorly of her and keep her away from playing with their young daughters. Marks. Turquoise lines crisscross my chest, dance from my neck to my nipples, veins that sing about the years of breastfeeding, milk squirting, kids shrieking. I have little red dots. They pop across my belly, reminders of the way I was stretched, belly still rounder than it used to be. My daughter has piercings, now wants tattoos. She yearns for the marks that show she is a woman in charge, show the pain she can take and where she can take it. Who needs tattoos? I try to warn her, but she is not listening. Swing. I am hypnotized by the sway of frayed yellow plastic ropes which hang from a very high bough of the biggest pine tree. Ghost of the blue plastic seat from which I and each of my kids would swing. Their dad figures how to get the ropes up there, some combination of a good throw and catch and genius. My pride and contentment and excitement. Thin and now pale yellow, not Crayola yellow, a fifth the length they were then, their ragged ends way too high to reach. Remnants, strands, separated still by ties to the limb of the tree, never touch each other. Their dad and I do not touch anymore, do not twist around each other and twirl as we unwind. He is not here to see the sunset stream onto the rippling water of the cove through waving strings. These ropes, hopeful and sad, perhaps like me, they hold space for grandchildren, so show me they still sway just like a swing. These tattered remains, this hope, this grief, this peace in which my heart can hurt and hope and heal. Set. The stage is set. There is a small room, big enough for a TV, a round table with tablecloth, 5 chairs, all empty, a bookcase, and a pretty mail table. The stage is set. Matisse cutouts are framed. I don't know my lines, though. I have run out of ideas. I have nobody to talk to anymore except my damn therapist. What have I done? My children still need me, though my husband does not. My friends still love me from afar. There is still a chance of me loving someone again. I just need to meet her or him and get to know them and keep my job and move back home. I want to channel courage. Coming out at the age of 55 is the last thing I wanted to do, and I have finally done it. For my children, I want to be brave and definite and proud and clear. I want to move back to the house and hire helpers to clear the snow and mow the lawn and change the filters and fill the bird feeder and walk the dog and clean the house while I grow my practice and write and love. I don't want to stay in this birdhouse, invisible, stifled by silent snowfall. Or do I? Here, there are no struggling 20-somethings crashing cars, dropping out of school, littering the house with their cans and bottles and clothes. There is no dog nor dog hair, only my lonely hair and smells. I have escaped. It is way too quiet. He might like this peaceful apartment, room of one's own, hum of the electric heat, and fingers tapping on these keys. The stage is set. Separation at 55. Late afternoon drive down Mass Ave. John Hancock Tower shimmers bright orange, as bright as the leaves and pumpkins. I loved seeing Sandra Bullock in Gravity, faced with her earthly losses in outer space, deciding to live anyway. My fall leaves me bare as November trees with small red berries. I walk a slow block with my mother, who reminds me how the British wear scarves this time of year. This one goes back to childhood and adulthood. Kitchen table rounds. You play it around the kitchen table, the big, white, round, laminated table. Your father presents the case. The symptoms are some of the clues you must use to solve the mystery. Electrolytes out of whack, fatigue. Along with the presentation of the patient your father enacts, morose. The cadence of the voice, deep and slow. Description of the face, eyes downcast, droopy. The gait, slow. The family input, a change, a loss. The false diagnoses that had led to the consultation with the expert, your father. Drugs, kidney disease. What would it be this time? Good guesses are surreptitious vomiting, now called bulimia, or hypothyroidism, my favorites. Outcome of the game. 3 out of 4 children who play this game will go to medical school, inspired by the mystery and theatricality of their father's game, by his coming alive as he solves the mysteries that save lives. The 4th will become a psychologist, fascinated by the self-destructive aspects in her father's stories. Then a writer, realizing that it is the stories themselves that make her come alive. And I'm going to read 2 more poems. Pandemic Prayer. I listen to the wind of my soul. Cat Stevens. Please, permission to escape into the smaller world, the bigger world, pulse and breath of the day, movement in my body, space around me, snow, light on the snow, wind in my soul. Like a prayer, I guess, this listening, this not wanting to hear chaos, but instead to feel treasure, touch in, settle. And it's hard to discern the difference between denial and self-care. The need for both sometimes. In the busyness of the day, actually not so busy, it's the uncertainty and vigilance I need a break from. Sometimes denial is like a warm blanket, keeping out the relentless. I turn on the news, find out what I need to know, or I sit within the blanket, listen to the wind. Reverie. It is raining and I'm finding it hard to leave the cozy house, to shop for rugs or for a ukulele or for yogurts and the other groceries. There's a damp chill in the air that I resist, looking out the window at the sunny-colored leaves on the maple tree. I want to write instead about the way the light shines on the sunny days this time of year and catches me in its sideways brightness, the oranges and yellows so startling against the green moss that I am transported easily to another time, another place, when I was younger, but the colors were just as bright, the smells as fresh, the sun as warm against my cool skin. Proust wrote about such transformations through taste, but perhaps he too was captured by the fall light. This time of year is supposed to bring the spirits of the dead within our reach and us within theirs. I walk among October trees still full of leaves, thinking of old friends, the transformations they have gone through. Shaking my head, I laugh at my grasping at them as if they had not died, as if they had not contracted chronic illnesses, been hit by cars, raised their own families, had sex change operations. I turn around on my walk in the woods, deep in my reverie of old friends and lovers, expecting them to join me on my walk. But instead, I am startled to find two laughing 20-year-olds creating their own moments to be savored decades from now. It must be the light, I decide, and walk on. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Really accessible, earnest, honest, straightforward. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Our next reader is Stephen Riel, who is the author of two full-length collections of poetry, Fellow Odd Fellow and Edgemere. His chapbook, Postcard from P-Town, was published as runner-up for the inaugural Robin Becker Chapbook Prize. His poems have appeared in the Minnesota Review and International Poetry Review. He edits the Franco-American journal Resonance. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you so much for inviting me to read here. I have never heard Sara's work before. I'm immediately impressed and admire the clarity and also the rhythms that were there. So thank you. So I'm going to read from both of my full-length books. One of them is Fellow Odd Fellow, and I'll stick the link in the chat in case you're interested. And one is called, the latest one is called Edgemere. You can hear me okay, everyone? Yeah, okay. So this is called Crayola Cruella. I came of age during one of those crafty 7-year pauses Disney places between releases, but didn't need the movie to sweep me away, or even its trailer to tease me. All it took was a cheap coloring book, typical spin-off Hollywood cranks out to puff profits, displayed to catch the doe eye of a soft-spoken boy who'd wend down dime store aisles. Once I had my prize safely home, its newsprint pages lying soft beneath my palm, I grasped the reason for that white crayon in every pack as I waxed in her opposing hair slash, highlighted its shock of black. Instead of a broom, Cruella had glamour, the nasty kind. The base of her phone cradled its handset with claws. pink cigarette spat smoke at the tip of her swank holder. Her jade alligator lighter blazed red eyes each time it was stoked. And she had a checkbook, and she had Hell Hall, and she had thieves at her beck and call. So I silvered slit eyes of her purring panther coop, blackened in points of ermine tails, darkened peach within concave curves of her skeletal cheekbones and shins. My boy eyes in a town too tiny for a drive-in, mind's eye open, a ready pond, reflecting livid lightning bolts, or a coloring book surging sketches. Imbeciles, get to the crossroads, head off those puppies, I'd shriek, unleashing the cackle within. So since it's Good Friday, I needed to read this poem, I thought. It's called My Perfect Confession. And there's been a debate over the centuries within the Catholic Church about whether there's a possibility for a perfect confession in which there's nothing left to confess at the end of it. My perfect confession. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is my first confession. The nuns had drilled us to begin just so, then list our transgressions as if in that dim closet, each soul could enter into grace through just one rote expression. They said, perhaps they misunderstood, that this was our one chance to wipe clean all sin-staining childhood. That Father Grady's sidelong glance through that yellowed linen screen stood in for the burning bush, God's lance-like all-knowing glare. If God had already seen what I had done to my dink at night, why must I now report my secret use of Vaseline? To whom could I turn to supply the grown-up words for what we boys had done? Our tingling skin, our silken thighs. At 7, I'd reached the age of reason. In bed at night, those misdeeds I could wear in public, I'd unpack, unfold, smooth out one by one, silently rehearse my hand-picked offenses, then repack them in piles tidy as lies. At church, the velvet curtain hung thick in my hand as I slipped into the box. The tile floor was no different inside than out. I heard a tap, crack of light widened, revealing the profile of our priest. There was no way out of this trap. I lied to my mom. I shot a spitball at our dog, Tori. Then came that pause between a bolt and its thunderclap. For all my sins, I'm very sorry. I waited for God to strike me dead. I crept to the altar, knelt before our glistening Mary, whispered my penance while Jesus's heart bled. Wouldn't justice, like a second hand, be swift and exact? No, Even breathing slows down when one's full of dread. At the heavy front door, sunlight pushed me back as if sprung from nightmare. I knew with a start, God would let me live with my guilt intact.
Wonderful.
So my poor younger brother, David, died of AIDS when he was 28 years old. This poem is in 4 sections. It's called Abel Has Almost No Immune System. 1. The red footnote on the label of the miracle drug catches my eye. Abel's in the 33% who vomit up nearly every bite. Mom and Dad told me he sobbed on the long distance call before a catheter was tunneled between his clavicle and first rib so he could feed through his subclavian. Other clinical words collide into Eden after pancreatitis, toxoplasmosis, after Abel's insurance company couldn't drop kick him fast enough. His lover works late hours to cover their mortgage. Wouldn't you? I borrow shekels to board the shuttle to their condo. Abel lies upstairs, starving. Just levering his bony 99 pounds into the bathtub hurts us both. After another 24 hours, when anyone less gone would have moaned, I'm hungry, the feeding machine arrives. Aqua plastic box like a vacuum cleaner, gleaming steel caddy, plastic tubes, plastic bags of almost fluorescent white nourishment. Welcome to the family. A nurse swings by to run through instructions as intricate as life. 1, interlocking joints. 2, kept sterile with alcohol wipes. 3, spill into Abel's core. Oh, that feels cool, he murmurs. This mission is a booby trap when each step must be followed to the iota to foil microbes. Is it possible to be precisely prophylactic forever and ever? And what if someone sleepy and or absent-minded stumbles through what's now second shift? How to gauge a turn for the worse? I am my brother's keeper. 2. Yes, my name is Cain, and I'm calling about Abel. Yes, I do have his patient ID. I want to see the bill the home health company submitted, the 3D pie charts accounting blazoned at board meetings to extol how much moolah was pinched by discharging failing policyholders into the land of Nod. For the criminal trial, our lawyers subpoena this quarter's financials, issue interrogatories to establish bloated profits the LLC diversified, how many day spas it spawned east of Eden, how many golf courses begat among thistle and thorn. 3. All evidence will be offered to Adonai. 4. I am the wobbly tiller in Abel's room who paces but must keep steady. With rigid fingers, I hold the survival of my first rival, whose birth introduced me to the murderous side I swing inside. This vigil will last days, only hours in fact. Unto dust thou shalt return. His sleek alarm clock sweeps silently on, while I scribble lists of specialists, lay siege to another helpline's moat. Abel has no drawbridge, one or two white cells left to rouse. One slip, one contaminated swipe. If only I could kneel beside his bed and believe.
Mm.
Mm, mm. Wow.
Wow.
So after that experience, I wrote this, and for those of you who weren't raised Catholic, the rosary, in the rosary, there's sections of 10 beads each, which are called a decade. And one traditional way of saying the rosary was to meditate on the holy mystery while doing so. So this poem is called What Remains. If there were a way to reach you, a language to learn, conjunctions, a subjunctive, a formal and familiar you. If there were a rosary to shinny up, a way to climb, decade by decade, holy mystery by holy mystery, into the indigo sky. If there were a highway in your direction, an odometer to gauge the distance between us, like a modern Bethlehem star. If my car radio could chance upon you, singing Streisand songs through the static, if I could sprout antennae, fizz like a Geiger counter, be launched like a satellite to track gamma rays from the black star you may now be. If I could sled downhill on a bright December afternoon and feel again your mittened fingers clasping my waist as we dodge bare oaks, skid out across the lake. If the lake were not black gloss, those runner scrapes like icy scars. If I could find the chink, simply tap and hear the hollow behind the fake door, then stumble through the tunnel out of this galactic silence into what remains of your light. I promise you would find me there. So this one is the last one. And I'm guessing that most people on this call know that the MBTA has a nickname, which is the T. So this is called The Woman with a Transparent Purse. The woman with a transparent purse has nothing to hide. She boards the T matter-of-factly in a sleeveless dress, the barest of sandals. She's self-assured as Twiggy in a mini at a photo shoot. I don't need X-ray vision to count the dimes inside her matching change pouch. But is this intimacy? There's no cranny, no crevice, no cache. She isn't ashamed of tampons, of what daughters of Isabella called in whispers, the curse. I wonder if this cellophane fashion statement has a seam where lint collects. She probably doesn't worry that an accidental blow to her head might delete her passwords. She probably doesn't squirrel away a spare key. Maybe she never locks her doors. Maybe she lives in a glass house. Imagine getting ready for work and ready for bed without shades, blinds, or drapes. A mannequin? Richly suited crowds could gawk whenever clerks stripped us of underclothes. Even the flashiest, swishiest goldfish sometimes needs to hover and rest its pucker behind a screen of plastic plants. Who'd choose to stand on the subway with lucite skin, a visible woman, fallopian tubes available to the passing glance of every passerby? If I had a purse, it would be the nook where I tuck an assortment of worries in the form of hot pink Pepto-Bismol and breath mints flecked with green. Slipped among lozenges would be daydreams and their props, a stash of Trojans, my diaphragm, perhaps some just begun poems, all membrane and heartbeat. The last thing I'd want hanging on 2 straps from my arm would be an ultrasound of myself advertising my jellyfish dreams. Thank you.
Wow, that is great. Thank you, Steve. That was really wonderful. And it kind of brought me back to some of my thoughts at the beginning, where I said that poetry is saying something with as little concealment as possible, what it is for him or her to be on earth at this moment.
Mm.
I think you bore that out. And the soul work involved in poetry as well. And I think I caught a slight reference to David Bowie with Black Star, which harmonized with Cat Stevens earlier.
Yeah.
So I want to begin our open mic with the inimitable Steve Nickman.
I can't live up to that. Thanks, Richard. And thank you, Sarah and Stephen, for your very moving work tonight. This poem was written in memory of a Korean monk whom I knew over 50 years ago at the Philadelphia Zen Center. His name was Shio Kyung-bo. I still place flowers. We sit facing the wall in the White Hall with polished maple floor, jonquils next to the bronze Buddha. Dr. Shou rings the triple chime, each peal's reverberations interrupted by the next until the third fades and time begins. Breathing, only breathing, counting, then no counting. Look at the wall, then no wall. The day's events, then no day. Hips hurt, knees ache. No ache, no thought, no breathing. Wait for the chime, no waiting. With the sound, silently walk, left heel, toes, right heel, toes, around the room with lowered eyes. Sit again, 3 chimes, one more brief forever. He tells a story, then 2 more walkings and forevers. On his last stroke, we rise again and chant with him the Heart Sutra. Oh, Sariputra, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. We bow to each other, shoes on in the hallway. Erect and grave in his gray silk robe, he assigned me my first koan. Does a dog have Buddha nature? Still unsolved. At my last visit, a gift, a poem he painted. 6 characters. May your courtyard fill with Zen wind, flowers, moon.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. This is a new side to you that I did not know. Thank you very much. Up next, we have Diane Silvestri.
Thank you, Richard, and my goodness, thank you, Sarah and Steve. I am so glad I joined this austere group this evening, and I think we should have had way many more to hear your incredible poems and your readings of them. So I'm thrilled I came. Thank you. I hope I haven't read this too many times to any of you. Fancy, I thought they were. Back then, anyway, the stack of 4 polished clear plates, their edges like nude pink lips serenely smiling. 3 loosened cups close by with icicle handles curving to kiss their soft pink cheeks. All safe, high on a shelf behind glass doors in what we called the china cabinet. I was sure they were precious. The doors could rattle open only with the twist of a small black key for some unlikely occasion that warranted the risk of using the silken plates. Like once, when their fragile fluted sun rays flashed on a tablecloth after Uncle Dave's funeral. How mistaken I was. Those beauties were, I later learned, depression glass. Mass-produced, thin, penny per plate dishware distributed as promotions at gas stations to guarantee a platter for the plebes like us.
Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.
And now please welcome Connemara Wadsworth.
Thank you. And I too enjoyed hearing poems of Sara and Steve. Thank you very much. This is called My Dear. The yellow mangoes are in season. I bought 2 bright as the sun in a child's tempera painting. How many wonderful mornings was the table set for breakfast with the golden fruit? How you sliced them, the oblong pit left for me to scrape clean with my teeth. How you often gave me the best half. Even if I switched them, you'd tell me you wanted me to have the unbruised piece. Today, I open 1 perfect succulent fruit. I'll eat only half. Slide the plate with its mate to the empty place where you'd sat so many mornings, and me aching to be with you again. You, golden and sweet season after season.
Oh, oh my God, Connemara.
So gorgeous.
Oh, gorgeous,
Thank you.
gorgeous.
He was a wonderful man.
Oh,
Here next is Carrie Loftman.
Hi, whoops.
May we see you?
I don't know what happened. Oh, there I am.
Ah.
Yeah, whether you want to or not. I'm a little humbled by what has preceded me. Both Sara and Stephen and Connemara. That was just heartbreaking.
Thank you.
But I thought of this poem because of what Sara first read. And I hope it's not too plebeian. Anyway, the relief pitcher. 1. In 1961, when I was 9, my teenage brother lobbed rubber baseballs to me in the slow, unwinding light of late August evenings. Summer leaving, as was he, a 4-year enlistee in the Air Force. We didn't talk, but moved easy in throw, chase, bounce, and leap. The thwack of a hard catch to my bare palm was prized entry into a foreign country. My brother said he was teaching me to not throw like a girl. 2. Another summer, 4 years later, I convinced my dad to play catch. With well-worn, dusty gloves and ball. We started, tentative, underhand. Then toss began, throw, overhand with speed. The ball grunting into our gloves. The casualness of his catches and the rising power of his pitches traced an arc of surprised admiration. I threw, and he answered. Aloud, he said, "You should have been a boy."
You can't win.
I can see why you thought of that one. I love the ball grunting into our gloves.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to round out this portion of our time together with a poem of my own. Some of you have probably heard it before, just like you probably heard Cat Stevens and David Bowie, but that doesn't mean you only heard him once. And maybe you weren't listening the first time I read it, so here it is again. What the poets tell me. Always report from the trench of yourself. Turn an ordinary moment into a blessing. Write when you don't know the answer. Practice many, many years before using the word cerulean. Some poems are never finished, but like viruses, shed new poems. Yearn to live many lives, one for each longing. Only use the word lichenlicht once in a book. Let yourself take dictation from a rainstorm. Allow life to enter you like a splinter. Use the poem to pull it out.
Hmm.
Well,
That's
I'd like to
beautiful.
thank all the readers, and I will mention that this time next month, first Friday, we will have Pam Jem and Monty Iyer. And beyond that, we'll have Helen Lee and Spencer Thurlow on June 2nd.
Hey, Rich, can you email us the contacts to get their books? If we wanted to buy their books, is that possible?
It's in the chat. So
Oh, it is?
if
Oh.
you could go to the chat and link there while
right,
it's
let's
still
look.
open, you can get that information.
Okay, thanks.
Any reflections from anyone? You've all been so well behaved. You know, one of the challenges of reading in Zoom is you don't really get the response from the audience. Although some of us elected to not be muted so we could express our sentiments as we were going along. I agree.
Richard, I loved your poem and the splinter, allowing the poem to come from the splinter, or whatever
Yeah.
that line was.
Thank you.
Pull it out.
I agree with Diane. I think we would have, you know, everyone would be fortunate to have been here tonight. I wonder if Good Friday is a reason more, because
Probably.
this was certainly a great.
Well, plus we're in the middle of Passover, so I think, and Ramadan, so like there's 3 holidays at the same.
Tough month.
Mhm.
Great evening, Richard. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Rich.